How might one think of the next 50 years in development writ large? What are some propositions that might be worth debating? Well, first, ongoing trends in international migration, in financial flows, in climate change will determine outcomes for all of us, actually, not just developing countries. So here we're in a global boat together with lots of others on these very broad international trends, and it's no longer really us against them, which is a change, or us on a pedestal and them striving beneath us. Secondly, I think a lot of instability in developing countries, researchers and others have concluded over the last 20, 30 years, comes from inequalities within societies. Not the fact that there are rich people and poor people. All societies exhibit those forms of inequalities in more or less stark ways, but rather groups within society that are disadvantaged, and if they're disadvantaged enough, be they ethnic groups, religious minorities, others, may choose to rise up in one way or another. So I think there's a greater awareness that various forms of inequality can destabilize societies, and that needs a bit more attention. Development assistance, aid, will play much less of a role in the next 50 years. Many of us have as an intuition that it never played that much of a role, but quite a lot of money was spent on it. Most of it at home, by the way. When you investigate how aid is actually spent by various aid agencies, a great deal of it is spent in the home country before any of it is ever seen. If we're lucky, there will be, by the end of this year, broad agreement, perhaps not a full consensus, on new approaches to climate change. And the agreement between China and the United States last year was critical in opening up that perspective, because until then the UN had been locked in a very unpromising and contentious debate on over who needed to do what, and China and the US set an example and challenged others to follow their example, and coming from China and the US, that's a pretty powerful call. So other countries are now trying to figure out what they are prepared to do individually. Increasingly, thinking on development and action on development is going to come from the developing countries themselves. I think the role of the World Bank in all of this, and the World Bank has been a very strong institution, the UN development actors, all of that is going to become much more important, because the developing countries, which have already demonstrated they can develop rather impressively, are going to be the ones in the driver's seat, and that gives me, personally, a great deal of satisfaction.